Jay.
Hi, give me 1 second, Eric. I think it should be recording, but I just want to make sure.
Okay.
I'm in a call, sorry. Yeah, all the phone booths are taken. Yeah, it should be recording. Why don't we go ahead and get started?
Okay, cool.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. You should be able to see my screen now. Let me know if you don't.
Yep, that's good.
Cool. All right. So if we want to create some automations, really the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to define our data source, which in this case is going to be a report. And so in order to do that, under interactions here, if we go to import and we create a new import, so I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And then we can give this a name. What would be a good name for this one?
Adaptive.
What was that?
I said you can name it adaptive leadership. Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I said you can name it adaptive leadership.
Okay, cool. I'm going to copy adaptive leadership all the way down. And then here in the file location, I'm going to select Salesforce objects and reports. Then I'm going to select the report option. And then I'm going to hit the select box here to where it'll allow us to actually search for that particular report. And that report name was what name?
Adaptive leadership. This is a report that has to exist in Salesforce first, I'm guessing.
Yep, exactly. So what this search box is going to do, it's going to go through and search every report within Salesforce.com.
Oh, okay, got it. Let me make sure that that's the right name I gave it. Give me just 1 second. It should be Adaptive Leadership 2016, and then N as in the number, and then 1.
Okay, cool. I can see that one down here. So we'll go ahead and check mark that, and we'll hit OK.
Okay.
And what that's going to do when we hit OK is it's going to bring up all the fields that are contained in that report. So for this one, there's not very many, so we'll just go ahead and include them all. So we'll check mark that to include them all. One quick note about the contact ID field, and it looks like you have it correct here, but if you don't have it named contact space ID, it won't bring over the 18-digit contact ID, and therefore the tracking data won't pass back to Salesforce.com when the email send takes place. But since you have it as contact space ID, it'll come over as the 18-digit ID versus the 15-digit ID. Allow that mapping to take place to push all that tracking data back correctly.
Got it.
So it looks like you have it good there. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that as the primary key as well. So that's going to be our unique identifier for this report. And looks like everything else is good. And I'm just going to switch the email to email address as well. And I think the rest should be okay. Cool. So once we have that defined, I'm just going to go ahead and hit save config. And I'm going to leave it as add and update because we're going to continuously wanting to grow this list as more people enter it so that we can kind of timestamp them and move along. So we're just building a list so we can kind of know when they've come into the app and et cetera. So once that is done, the rest of the settings we can leave the same. And then for here, we can type in an email address. Do we just want to use your email address?
Yep. So just J and then last name ZHENG at acumen.org.
There we go. And we can go ahead and save that. And it'll take a couple minutes to save. And what it's doing there, if we jump over to subscribers, and let's see if it's in here. So since you have the contact ID field name correctly, it may actually put it in the Salesforce data extension. Yep. So it's actually going to create that data extension for us in order to house all the data that we're going to be bringing over from that report, which is pretty nice. So you don't have to create those manually.
Great.
So if we go back over to import, I just want to run this just to do a quick test to make sure data is coming over correctly. It's going to pull in some data, hopefully. As long as there's data in that report.
Yeah, there are some data in the report.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so there it goes. It's processing. Cool. So it looks like I brought in 9 records. So we can take a look at those. And these are the records. It looks mostly test records, which is good.
Yep.
Cool. So we have that data in place. So really the next thing we need to do is figure out how do we kind of run the data or run the emails off of that data. So we're going to be going off the course registration date, right?
Yes.
Cool. And actually, I think I may have made one mistake. We set the course registration to text. I'm going to go back. I'm going to delete this real quick. And I'm going to set that to date as well. Unfortunately, one of the bad things about this is I don't believe you can make quick edits to field types once it's actually created. So
I see an edit fields button over there. Did you see that in the data extension?
Oh, yeah, we might be able to do it this way. A lot of the times I don't like to do it this way just because there's some things on the back end that could get mismapped. But we can give it,
Okay.
we'll just do course registration date and then we'll delete that. We'll save it. We'll try to recreate it.
Otherwise, we can start from scratch if you think that's best.
Yeah, sometimes that's a little quicker, but we'll give this a shot real quick. I think they just implemented a fix to where you can actually just create a field on the data extension after it's been created by the import, and it should map up all together perfectly. But there's been some bugs with that we've come across. Still working. Actually, let's go ahead and delete that real quick. It may be quicker. So we'll check mark all those. We'll add the primary key. We'll switch email to email. And then we will select course registration completion date to a date.
Some of these fields are not text, but rather checkboxes. Does that matter?
It does. Do you know what the course registration completion date is?
Completion date is a date, but the completed the course field is a checkbox.
Okay, cool. So that should be fine for completed the course as long as the date is a date. We should be fine, I think. So we'll give this a shot and see.
So it's okay if the text box fields are mapped to text.
Yeah, so texts are going to be your most flexible. They're going to be able to accept most anything. As long as you don't like do cross data points to where like you're putting in a date into like a Boolean field or a text value into a Boolean field, that's where you're going to kind of run into issues.
Got it. Okay.
That is saved. So we'll go ahead and run that again. See if that brings back the same amount. Cool. So it looks like it brought in the 9 records again.
Yep.
Check that. Awesome. And it brought in the course registration date correctly as well. And the reason that's why I wanted to do that is so the filters can actually evaluate this field as a date. So we can do like addition and subtraction to kind of identify when somebody or how long ago that they've, signed up. Cool. So the next thing I want to do as far as when setting these up is if I jump over to the email section and if we navigate to those emails, I just want to do a quick validation to make sure that if there's any dynamic content in those emails that it matches up correctly and checks out there. So do you know where those emails are located?
I'm not sure what you mean by where the emails are located.
So the emails for the automation that we're setting up.
Oh, okay. Yes. It's under active courses.
Okay. Courses.
Adaptive leadership. And then there's a series of emails that we want to send them. So my first question was, do we have to set up this interaction for each email that we want to send? For example, week 1 would be 1 week after the course registration date. Week 2 would be 1 week after the course registration date, and if they have not completed the course.
We would. So there's going to be, let's say, 4 user citizens that we have to set up.
Yep.
But first, before we do that, I just want to make sure that they're going to validate correctly. So there's no dynamic content here. Is there?
Can you give me an example of dynamic content?
Like any kind of AMP script or anything like that that could cause a kink when the data is not correct, not matching up correctly. A quick way that we can do to validate that is this validate button here.
Yep.
And then little data extension, and then we can go back to our Salesforce and then our adaptive leadership data extension and hit validate. It should tell us if it's going to run into any issues during this end, and looks like it's good. So no problems found, which is great.
Great.
And it looks like we'll just do that for the rest of them as well, just to double check. good. Cool. So that all checks out. So the next thing we have to do is we're going to create a couple of filters to point to this data extension that we created for each of the emails. And so this is where we're going to define that logic. So under subscribers and then data filters, let's go ahead and create an adaptive leadership folder just to kind of keep these organized. Jump back over here real quick and grab the names. So we keep that consistent. And once we're back in the data filter folder, we'll hit create. Instead of profile attributes, we want to select a data extension to run off of and hit apply. And we want to choose our Salesforce data extension and adaptive leadership. And we want to start defining our criteria. So that first email you said you wanted to be 1 week out from the course registration date?
Yep.
Cool. So we'll just take this course registration completion date, drag that over here, and we'll say, let's see, it is equal to today minus 1. Oops. Let me try to back out of this real quick. Hopefully it's letting me actually select it. Well, that's strange. Interesting. Are you in the app by chance?
Am I in exact target right now?
Yeah.
No.
I was going to say, because it doesn't look like it's going to let me select this, which it should, and I'm wondering if it's a browser issue. I was wondering if I'd save this, if you would want to go back through and just select all these where it says day and just switch it to week.
Can you just change it to 7 days?
Yeah, it's not letting me select anything in here. Like once I actually go and edit, it should.
Which browser are you using? Because I'm also using Chrome, so I wonder if I would have the same problem.
Yeah, I'm using Chrome. Not too sure if it's just related to, let's see if I can't do a quick hack here. That may not work. Interesting. Maybe if I save it first and then maybe try to go back into it if it'll let me do it. Interesting. That's very weird. Let me try to jump into Firefox as well. It might give us some help.
Hey, Eric, I just logged in and I don't have a problem changing it, so why don't we keep going?
Okay, yeah. That's strange. I'm not sure. It might be a version of Chrome that I'm on, or
Yeah, I
something.
just changed it to 1 week. So see if you when you go back into it, if it saved the change.
Yeah, let's give that a shot. Yep, it looks like it's updated. So I'm gonna go ahead and create the other 3 real quick. And then if you want to do that, bang,
Yeah, why don't we just use 1 as an example, and I can make the other 3.
okay, yeah, we can do that.
Yep.
So since we have this filter created, that's going to grab everybody from our adaptive leadership data extension where the course registration completion date is equal to today minus 1 week, which is 1 week ago.
So if today's the 7th, it's going to capture everybody from when to when?
So if today's the 7th, it'll do a 7-day span. So around the 1st, I believe, if I'm thinking about that correctly. So it'll be just 7 days prior to, I'm sorry, 7 days after that course registration completion date.
So anyone who signed up on the 1st through today's date. And is it including everyone who signed up today?
No, it would just be today minus 1 week. If we wanted to include everybody who signed up today, we could build in some logic for that as well. You'd be looking more of a time range versus just who signed up 1 week ago.
No, I think that's fine. I'm just trying to make sure that it's not capturing the people who signed up on the 31st.
Right. Yeah, it would just be 7 days from now.
It's really 6 days, right? So it's from the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, and not the 7th.
Right, yeah, exactly. You're right. Sorry about that.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure in case someone signs up and they're like, oh, I didn't get this email, I can look at the date and see which batch they were in.
Yeah, dates are very tricky to kind of work with as far as like adding and subtracting them and things like that. It's always a tough one for sure. So once we have that, the next step is under interactions, we're going to, under the same name, create a filter activity. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a data extension for us for that filter and basically spit out the data that meets the requirements so that we can then point to it through user-initiated send. And this is kind of a downfall with Salesforce data extension sends is you have to do this. In regular sends, you can actually point directly to the filter without doing this step. But for the Salesforce one, you have to do the step, unfortunately. But it's not too bad. So we'll just name it exactly the same, and then we will just point to our data filter that we created. Okay. And we'll just give a data extension name for the data extension that we wanted to create, an external key for that data extension, and then the description. So we'll just name this all the same, it's fine. And we'll hit save. And if we take a look back in Salesforce data extensions, we can see that it created just a copy data extension of our adaptive leadership data extension. And
do you have to start any of these, or are they automatically started already? Is there?
We'll have to start them. So once we have all our pieces created, when we move into the automation phase, we'll define them in there, and then every time that automation runs, these pieces will run.
Got it. Okay.
And so it'll just continuously hit these pieces and make them go. So hit start. We may not see anything be returned on this one, but just in case. So knowing that, we have our segment that we want to send to for the first email, and that'll refresh and override itself every single time. So the next step is really going down to interactions in Salesforce send emails. And this is where we're actually going to define the email send itself. So we'll create a new folder and we'll call it leadership and hit create. Give it the same name all the way across. Go to active courses, adaptive leadership, and select our week 1 email. And then we'll do the default commercial send classification for courses that.
It's supposed to be a course though. Should it be course transactional then?
It could be technically. I would just make sure when you're making that decision that there isn't really anything in the email content that's promoting any kind of sales or stuff like that. And it needs to be purely transactional.
I see.
Usually, if in doubt, I would stick with commercial. But if you feel like there's a good reason for it to be transactional, then that's where that transactional piece comes in.
Got it.
Yep. So if it's like something that's being reacted towards them actually doing something, so if you're sending this email in response to them doing something, then that's a good use case for transactional. But if there's any kind of gray line, you're better off doing commercial.
Okay. I mean, sometimes in our course emails, we say like the next course that you can take is this one. Does that count as commercial?
As long as the main part of the message is transactional, I think you can probably get away with doing commercial or transactional. So a good example there is like abandoned cart emails. Some people consider those transactional, some people consider them commercial. A lot of the main content of those emails are, hey, you want something in your cart, which is more transactional, but then they maybe throw in like a coupon or something.
Yep.
Which could make it more commercial, but it's more in the transactional phase at the same time. So really kind of a gray line there, but just be careful either way. So
Makes sense.
yep. Cool. So do we want to do transactional for this one or commercial?
Commercial's fine. Yep.
Cool. So let's go down here a little bit, and we're going to do edit recipients, and this is where we're going to select our data extensions. So we'll do Salesforce data extensions and then adaptive leadership week 1. And we'll hit save. And then we can leave my tracking as my tracking, and then making sure to have the send Salesforce tracking data checkbox checked, so that we'll actually see the statistics for the send show back up in Salesforce as well.
Yep.
And we will track all links from this within this email.
Mm-hmm.
Once we have all that defined, we can hit save. And at this point, we have our send created, so we can jump into Automation Studio and kind of pull all these pieces that we created together.
Okay.
So just email and then Automation Studio.
Yep. Can we stop here for a second and let me just recap the pieces that we created? So the first thing that we created was under subscribers. We had to create, what was that called?
The first thing would be under interactions and then import.
Yep. First
So we
thing.
can bring the report data over.
Yep.
And then under subscribers, we created a data filter to define those segments from that report that we imported. And then under interactions, again, we did a filter activity, which allows us to execute on that data filter and basically push that data down into another data extension to where that segment is just contained within itself in order for us to do. And then the next one would be the Salesforce send adaptive leadership, to where we can tie the email and that segment that we created together in order for the send to happen.
Got it. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Cool. So the next piece is Automation Studio.
Mm-hmm.
We'll jump over to under Journey Builder and Automation Studio. And we'll go ahead and create a new automation. We'll also do scheduled for this one. Hit OK. And we'll just paste in adaptive leadership and hit done. And so this is where we're going to drag in all of our pieces for the automation. So that first one is going to be that import file in the report. So drag that in. We can define our import. So under our adaptive leadership, we'll choose that, done. And I'm just going to write a couple of notes in here just for reference. Import. And then the next one is we're going to do a filter activity. So we'll just choose filter and drag that in. And we'll go down and navigate to our week 1 email. And this is the filter activity under interactions. So we don't actually have to point to the one under subscribers, just because it's tied up to the filter activity that we created in the interactions. So we'll do that and done. And so once that's ready to go, we can then choose our send email. and drag that over. And instead of hitting configure, we're going to hit this little triangle, and we'll do send definition template. And that's going to allow us to navigate to the user-initiated send that we selected, or we created earlier. So we scroll down, it looks like there's quite a few in here. Okay. Oh, sorry, I put the wrong one, so we'll get rid of this. So there's actually two different send emails. There's a Salesforce send and a regular send email. It looks like you may not actually have access to this, which you should. Yeah, it doesn't look like you actually have access to this. So there is another option that's supposed to be here. It's called Send Salesforce Email.
Mm-hmm.
It'll act very similar to this. So if I drag that over, but it'll allow you to hit the check mark and go to Send Definition Template and then choose our Salesforce Send Email selection in order to select the one that we created. And then once that's created, that would be basically our automation minus the other segments that we would have to create. But in order to get that enabled, what would have to happen is I think support would probably have to be contacted in order for them to flip the switch on the back end of the account in order for that to show up. So that may be something we can have as a takeaway as well. So just as a FYI there, we can definitely help out with submitting that case if you wanted to. Either way works, or if you wanted to do that as well. That should be okay too. So just kind of your preference there. But once that piece is in place, here is the third step. We can hit save. And the automation would be then ready to go. And all we would have to do is schedule it. And in this case, I'd probably say scheduling it once a day would probably be fine. So we would just pick a start date. Say if we wanted to do it tomorrow at 12 a.m., we could then repeat it daily. And we could then end it after never. So basically it would run daily for an indefinite amount of time. And
is it possible to run automation at the same time each day? For example, like there's people that might receive either the week 1 or the week 2 email, but they're in the same general report. So I can still send emails at the same time, right?
So you're asking, like, can you send the automation at the same time every day? Yeah, so you can definitely
automations.
Yeah, exactly. So say if you created an automation for week 1 and an automation for week 2 and an automation for week 3, those can all run at the same time, or you run those at different times. You just have to define that time here on the time schedule.
Yep.
Where you would do that, or if you wanted to include all of your automation pieces within a single automation, you can do that as well. So think of an example if we had the import file here, and then step 2, we had the filter activity for email 1, email 2, email 3, and email 4, all defined in the same step. We could do that as well. That's typically how we would set it up for other automations that we built out, just keeping it all together like this, unless there was a need to actually have it broken out into separate automations.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep, for sure. So would you want us to submit a support ticket in order to get that enabled, or is that something you would want to handle?
I think I can handle it. What is it that I'm asking for? I'm just asking for the option to send the send email.
Yeah, so it would just be the option in Automation Studio to send Salesforce emails.
Okay, got it. I will reach out to them, and then if I run into any trouble, I can let you know.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
Happy to help.
Yep. Other than that, it seems like there's just 2 steps in Automation Studios. Is there anything else that we need to know how to use?
For this particular automation, I would say no, you're probably not going to use any of the other pieces, but I mean, if you want to quickly go through these real quick, I can definitely give you some background on them.
If you can go back to the data filter for a second, can we add a second criteria to that?
Go back here and then data filters.
Here, is it possible to add a second criteria that says the course registration is 1 week ago and they have not completed the course yet. So completed the course equals 0.
Yeah, we could do that. So we could say just drag the completed the course piece over, which will bring up this and piece over here. And so if you click on it, you can toggle it between and or.
Got it. Yep.
And then equals to, and that's weird. It lets me do it now. So I'm not sure what was going on there, but we can just say equals to 0. And that will allow you to do that as well. So I'll go ahead and save that for now.
Is there a way in this data filter to create logic that's like 1 and 2 or 3 and 4, something like that?
Yep, you can do that as well. So let's take the completed course section just for example. So say if we wanted to do course registration completion date is equal to today minus 1 week, and completed the course is equal to 0, or it's equal to 1. If we drag another completed course over, we can then go over to where it highlights the connection between those two fields, and we can hit and it'll bring up another and or piece where we can hit or, and then we'll choose this one. And so now it's saying course registration completion is equal to today minus 1 week, and the completed course is 0 or 1.
Mm-hmm.
So you can definitely work with those different groupings and things like that that way. And you can get pretty granular with it as well. I mean, you can even go down even further than just the second level, up to like 3 or 4 levels. So you do a lot of things with that.
Okay, cool. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Cool. Do you have any other questions regarding the automation? Or anything else we could on it?
I think so, not at this moment. I think sounds like I need to have them turn on the switch. And then my thoughts at this point is to just create the automations using, I'll probably watch this video a couple times, and just try to recreate the automations on my own for the other weeks and then test it. And if I run into any trouble, then I can definitely reach out and go through it with you as well and problem solve together.
Yeah, let me know if you want me to QA and take a look at it just to make sure everything looks good from what we do. Perfectly happy to do something like that as well. So.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah, the report that we pulled in, it's just a test report, so it's only gonna run the automation for people that are signed up from my team. So that's why I'm not too worried about turning it on. Oh, that actually is another question. Is there anything else that we need to turn on as far as the pieces that we created today?
As far as like just within the app itself?
Yeah, I think we created those data filters, we created the interactions. Are there, I guess, any of these pieces that needs to be started?
Force user shaded send is really the only piece that really needs to be turned on within the app. It looks like you have access to everything else you would need for this particular use case. Now, if there was more logic or something that came into play, that may affect that. But it looks like you have access to most everything you need.
What I mean is, for example, if you go back to this, the data filters, I think it was the data filters. Let's see. Yeah. Or was it under? There was something where there was a checkbox, and then at the top, you could start the interaction or something.
Oh, that was under maybe filter activities and interactions.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't really have to worry about this unless you're running it manually. So you do have an option to spit out the data for that data filter in a manual way, but if you're including in the automation, that's going to run automatically every time the automation runs.
Okay, that's helpful. Great. No, I think we're good. Thank you so much for everything. I will just test it and then hopefully not have any trouble when I try to set it up on our end.
Shoot questions over if you have them, and happy to help.
Okay, no, I really appreciate it, and I'm sorry to hear that you're not feeling well, but I hope you get some rest at home.
I think I might try to take a nap here I have another
Yeah.
call.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to my team and be like, I learned a lot from Eric today. My work here is done. I'm going home as well.
All right, cool. Well, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Take care, Eric.
You too. Bye.
Yeah, bye.